But Ethan, we're going to wrap this episode up with one more discussion, and that is Keldon Johnson.
Mm.
It feels like even before this season, Ethan, even last year, the year before, Keldon has just been a hot topic for Spurs fans. And we've talked about this, I believe, even in the last episode we did together. You kind of mentioned how we're probably, a lot higher on him than maybe a lot of other Spurs fans. But with that being said, that doesn't mean that we're trying to sit here and say that he's, a perfect, there's nothing to criticize at all. Like, we're not trying to sit here and say that either. But I think we do our best to kind of come from a balanced perspective and, look at the things that he does do well, the strengths that he does have. And with all of that being said, Ethan, we're just going to kind of discuss that a little bit. And I texted with you about this earlier this week, and I said, I'm kind of going to pose a question to you.
Okay.
And then kind of you can go offensively and defensively off of this. I already have my answers and everything written down, so I'm just going to dish the question to you. What can KJ improve on to unlock the things he does well?
Ooh, that's a great question. That's a great way to frame that. Offensively, I think he needs to go to the Marco Bellinelli school of moving without the basketball, because we put him in that six-man role, and that kind of allowed him to play to his strengths, which is ball in hand, taking guys off the dribble, and either getting to the cup or shooting a three. He doesn't have a lot in the in-between game. We saw glimpses of some post-ups, nothing crazy every once in a while. But if he can get better at moving without the ball, that opens up his ability to play alongside Devin Vassell and Victor Wembanyama and the rest of the starting lineup, because he's not going to have the ball in his hands that often. And in that lineup right now, he's basically standing in a corner or, working his way up from a corner to the wing. And when he gets the ball, it's just sprint to the basket as hard as you can, right? That's really his go-to move when he's moving without the basketball. So if he can get some moves, cutting baseline, moving off of screens, becoming a Reggie Miller type player where he doesn't need the ball to get open, I think that will allow him to take guys off the dribble more often, which is his biggest strength.
Yeah. And then defensively, you want to go for that?
Defensively, I think he kind of is who he is defensively. I think for him, it comes down to kind of what everyone was talking about with Luka Doncic in the playoffs, and that's just don't give up open drives. Just fight to get over screens, get in front of guys. I know you're going to get beat physically. You're not as tall as some of the guys you're defending, so they're going to shoot over you at times, and you're not as quick laterally as some of these dudes that are able to take you off the dribble. But if you could just stay in front of them for as long as you possibly can and make that an effort focus, and I think it was a focus for him last year. I think that there was just a frustration element to everything.
There
Plus
was
him
so
moving to
much
the
going on
bench.
too.
Yeah, there was big changes on the roster and in the rotation that maybe it took that out of his head. But if he can refocus that and make that an emphasis for himself coming into the season, I think that we'll see a positive turn for him, because he really doesn't have to stay in front of him for long. Just give Wemby time to come help is really what we're asking. But if he's going to give up a wide open drive, then of course people are going to be yelling at him in the comments and on social media.
Right. Um, I'll just answer that question just like you, Ethan. A lot of it will be similar. But the best way that I can describe it, and this is kind of saying what you're saying, just in a different way,
Mm-hmm.
uh, be a more connective piece
Mm.
offensively and defensively. You talked about him being a better off ball player. That ties into being a better connective piece offensively. And then defensively, like you said, I mean, well, the one thing I guess I would say a little bit more connection wise defensively is just rotations and awareness off the ball. Because there are times where he's been caught sleeping on backdoors. That's
Mm.
something that still stands out to me a little bit. I will say at times though this season I did notice, him getting in a stance and staying in front of guys more. Like you said, though, I agree with everything you said also. That's still an area that can have improvement. But just some of the stuffs I had written down, again, rotations, awareness off the ball. And there's room for growth on the ball, too, on blow bys. Again, kind of just what we said. And then offensively, looking to pass a little bit more, like maybe on your drives, when you are drawing attention, driving inside, like, and a lot of that ties into, you're going to have to drill that because
Mhm.
in those situations, you're not going to be, Keldon's not like a Chris Paul And I say that with all the utmost respect, but it's not like it's going to be easy for, we haven't seen a ton from Keldon's highlights in his career of him contorting himself around people and like making passes, at the rim. And maybe that's something that's never going to be like completely in his game. But I think Keldon, with the attention he does draw when he drives to the rim, I think he can be more aware, and make more extra passes. I think that's something that he does have in his ability. The other thing, and this ties into what you said, I said adding, just a little bit more of a midi game that ties into what you said about the in between stuff. Maybe that's something else that's just never really necessarily going to be there. But if he can add like just a little move here or there, like I think he can do that.
Mhm.
That can just create some open shots for him in the in between game. That would do a ton to open up the rest of his offensive game. But the last thing, being more consistent on threes. We've seen times when Keldon Johnson has shot like 45 plus percent 2 years ago to open the season. And then
Mhm.
we've seen it fall off. But consistently throughout that time, it's always at least been in the 30s. So it's never been like completely terrible. Um, so I mean, man, it's just like I don't want to just go back to one instance of his career, but I can't say that I haven't seen the potential for him to be a catch and shoot guy at the same time. You know what I mean? Even if it hasn't been consistent, we have seen him do that at times. Granted, the situation was different, but still, playing next to Victor with his role on this team, he's got to be a better catch and shoot, consistent 3-point shooter. That's really my main criticism.
1,000%. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with what I was saying too about just moving without the ball. Because if he's going to be moving without the ball, he's going to have to be better at catching and shooting. Um, and then also to emphasize what you said about falling asleep defensively, I think it's that third rotation for him that gets him in trouble. Like he usually makes the first rotation,
Mhm.
but when they make that extra pass, then he's like, like I don't really want to run out to the corner at this point. So just not getting lost. I would agree with that statement for sure.